Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. This is Introduction to Watts List. I am Watt Hamlet of Watt Hamlet Consulting. Thank you for joining me. Here is a look at our agenda. So the goal for the session is that you will learn what Watts List is and how to effectively use it to help you identify consulting firms and independent consultants that can help you with your Salesforce needs. And the agenda is, so I'll just spend a few minutes here at the top on introduction. I will provide an overview of Watts List through a few slides. I have about 5 slides to share, and then we'll spend most of the time on Watts List in a demo. I'll wrap with some additional resources, and then we'll have some additional time for Q&A. And the first question is coming already, and that is, will I send the slides afterwards? And yes, the slides and the recording will be available after the session. Okay, so let me just start by introducing myself briefly. So I've been focused on technology in the nonprofit sector for the past 20 years. I spent the first 5 working for a national nonprofit organization as their digital director. And then for the past 15 years, I have been in the Salesforce ecosystem for nonprofits in a variety of roles, both for product companies as well as for services companies. And I founded Watt Hamlet Consulting, or WHC, in 2018. With a vision of better buyers and better sellers in the Salesforce nonprofit ecosystem. So over the past 5 years through WHC, I have had the opportunity to work directly with dozens of nonprofits to help them navigate the Salesforce ecosystem, primarily through needs assessments, through partner selections, and through implementation oversight. I've also consulted to about a dozen consulting firms, as well as additional independent consultants, to help them either establish or grow their businesses to better serve nonprofits on Salesforce. And so through this work, I have developed a particular perspective on what nonprofits need to be successful with Salesforce and what it takes for partners to successfully serve nonprofits. And a critical step in that relationship is just helping them find each other. There are tens of thousands of nonprofits that use Salesforce today, and there are hundreds of consultants that provide Salesforce services to nonprofits. The Salesforce.org partner network used to be a means by which nonprofits could identify those consultants that serve the sector. But when that was disbanded earlier this year, I started to think about ways that I could potentially help fill that gap and maybe even improve upon it. And so that's how Watts List was born. So what is Watts List? It's the only online directory that's 100% focused on consulting firms and independent consultants that provide Salesforce-related services to nonprofits. Who is Watts List for? It is for a few different audiences. First and foremost, it is for nonprofits to help them find consultants to address their Salesforce needs. It is also for those consultants themselves, to help them reach their best fit clients, to help them find partners or subcontractors for their Salesforce work, or just to help them understand who's out there today doing this work and how do they compare to other consultants in the sector. Watts List is also for job seekers. So it's a source for those who are looking for Salesforce consulting opportunities among nonprofit-focused firms. It's for firms and other folks who advise nonprofits on consulting partner selection, who want to use a data-driven approach to do that. And generally, it's just for anyone interested in the current state of Salesforce consulting services for nonprofits. So these are the benefits of Watts List as I see them, or as I intend them. So the first is that it's one place that nonprofits can go that's 100% focused on Salesforce consulting resources for them. There are other directories out there, including the Salesforce App Exchange, but none of them has this specific focus. Secondly, it is a place that both traditional consulting firms as well as independent consultants can be included. So when the Salesforce.org partner network disbanded earlier this year, it was a great place for finding firms, but it wasn't a source for independent consultants. And the App Exchange doesn't really have independent consultants either. But from my perspective and the work I've done with nonprofits, those folks play an important role in addressing the needs that these larger firms either can't address or won't address. Third, Watts List is highly specific to the needs of nonprofits. So it's not just a place where those who do nonprofit work can be found, but also the ways that nonprofits can search for consultants is highly specific. And you'll see that as we get into the demo, that the search tools are designed to help nonprofits identify consultants on the criteria that are going to matter to them. And then finally, and this is very important to me, that Watts List is a level playing field. If you are a nonprofit looking for a consultant, just in general, you are going to tend to encounter the firms that have the biggest marketing budgets. You know, those are the ones who can afford to pay for the Google ads and the LinkedIn ads. Those are the ones that can afford to show up at events, host parties at Dreamforce, those kinds of things. And so I wanted Watts List to be a place that, yes, that could include those firms, but also include them on an equal footing with any firm that does this work, you know, regardless of the kind of marketing budget they have to get their name out there. You know, I wanted Watts List to essentially be about the data about these firms and not, you know, and not how big or small they are. Okay, so that's a little bit of the background. So what is on Watts List? If you go to Watts List today, what are you going to find there? So currently there are over 120 consulting listings. We're almost to 130 as of yesterday. So there's a nearly 100 firms, consulting firms, and 30 independent consultants. By the way, just for the terminology perspective on this webinar, I'm going to just use the word firm interchangeably, whether it's a business with multiple people or just a business with a single person. And collectively, those firms represent over 2,000 individual consultants who provide Salesforce-related services to nonprofits. As a whole, these firms are very focused on the nonprofit sector. 2/3 of the listings are for consultants that do 75% or more of their consulting business to nonprofits. And there are nearly 50 listings for consultants that focus exclusively on Salesforce for nonprofits. Collectively, these firms have an average of 8 years of experience providing Salesforce services to nonprofits. They serve organizations ranging from, 1 or 2 person nonprofits all the way up to large global organizations of 500 or more staff, and across multiple subsectors in the nonprofit sector. These consultants are based in the US plus 6 other countries. They offer services in 11 different languages. Nearly half of the listings are for firms that are owned by groups or majority owned by groups that are underrepresented in the tech sector. So these include firms owned by individuals who are Black, Latinx, Native American, women, LGBTQ+, people with disabilities, and veterans. These companies collectively have experience with every available Salesforce product for nonprofits, as well as nearly every other Salesforce cloud and over 100 different ISV apps. And they provide services that range from traditional implementations, managed support and services, to related services like change management, data governance, and so forth. The majority of the businesses of the firms that are on the list on the directory are part of the Salesforce App Exchange. So they are official Salesforce partners. And half of the profiles include links to job listings. So half of these folks on Watts List do hire. All right. So with that, I'm going to transition over to the demo. And let me just kind of set the stage here for what we're going to cover in the demo. So there's 3 scenarios I'm going to walk through. The first is a nonprofit looking for a consulting firm to implement Salesforce. The second is a nonprofit, or it could also be a consulting firm that is looking for an independent consultant to help with a specific need. And then the third scenario would be a job seeker, or perhaps even an independent consultant who is looking for job opportunities with a consulting firm. Great. And I have a question here in the Q&A. So what is the best way for a seller to use WhatsList to acquire new contracts with nonprofit buyers? So the demo today is really going to be focused on the end user perspective. So those who are coming to WhatsList seeking information. However, obviously an important part is the benefit that consultants get from being on WhatsList. So I think you'll see some of that as we go along. And basically, the short answer to the question is to provide as much transparent information about who you are and the work that you do in the nonprofit sector. And once you've created your profile, any user of the site will be able to either contact you directly via email through a link on your listing, or we'll be able to link off to additional resources about you to learn more about you, and by which they can follow up and reach out. Okay, so I'm going to switch out of my slides here into WhatsList and just give you a bit of an orientation here before we go into our scenarios. So the first is that WhatsList is at watslist.info. Please do not go to watslist.com. I'm pretty sure you will get a virus, and I'm sorry about that. If this is your first time to WhatsList, you will need an access code to view the listings. And so you'll see here on the homepage, there's a box to enter your access code. If you don't have one, there's a link here to get one. There are some things you can see on WhatsList without an access code. The main one I would draw your attention to is here in the navigation, the current list. So this is an alphabetical list of all of the companies and consultants that are on WhatsList. So if you're just curious who's there, you can consult this without having to create an access code. You can read the FAQ, you can access the link to create a consulting profile and so forth. But really, to get the full benefit out of the site, you're going to need that access code. So you'll go to a simple form like this. You'll fill in the information that's shown here. Once you submit the form, you'll get an access code via email. You'll plug that in on the homepage. And then as long as you're not in incognito mode, that access code will be stored in your browser. So you'll never need to enter that a second time unless you come in from another device or clear out your cache, something like that. If at any point you need the access code again, you'll just come back and fill in the same form, and the access code will be mailed to you again. I do want to say just a quick word here about privacy. So the only information I collect about anyone who uses WhatsList is the information on this form. Once a user requests an access code, I don't track anything else they do on WhatsList. In fact, I don't even track whether or not they use the access code. I do use web analytics to help me monitor things like site visits and page views, but this is all done anonymously. There's no IP or user tracking that's done. I don't use Google Analytics. I use something called Plausible that's GDPR compliant. So I'm not doing any cross-device tracking on you or cross-site tracking, anything like that. I want you to be able to trust that I'm not watching how you use WhatsList and that nobody else is either. And I don't share any of the information that you provide me outside of Watt Hamlet Consulting. I never share names, email addresses, or organizations. Okay. So let me go back to, so I've now entered my access code back on the homepage. And I want to just spend a bit of time here on the search tools that are available to you. Let me just scroll before I do that so you can just get a feel for what's here on the homepage. So anytime you come to the site, you'll see the full list below the search tools. And you can just kind of get a feel here for how these listings look in the default view. So we've got the name of the company, whether or not they're a consulting firm or independent consultant, part of their firm description that they have provided, and then a link to learn more about them. Everything that you're going to find on a profile listing has been provided directly by the firm. This is not based on my research. This is based on the profile that the consultant has created. So these are the claims that they are making about themselves. So should you choose to move forward with any of these firms that you find on WhatsList, you should definitely do your own validation of this information prior to making any hiring decisions. If I scroll all the way down to the bottom here, you'll see the pagination controls. This is also how you'll be able to tell how many consultants match your search, okay? So just know that there are 10 listings per page. And so we're showing up to 13 pages here. That means they're up to 130 consultants just by default, shown here in the view, somewhere between 120 and 130 because they're 13 pages, okay? So as you start to apply the search tools in Wattslist, you'll be able to use this kind of page count number to know how many consultants are matching your criteria. Of course, if you're really curious, you can click through every single one of the profiles, but I'm just gonna quickly scroll back here to the top and just to kind of show you, here's how you'll normally be making use of Wattslist. So the first tool that you have at your disposal is a keyword search. The important thing to know about this is that this is simply a keyword or a key phrase search that requires an exact match. So think of it like searching inside of a Google sheet rather than using Google. The search does search every part of the profile listing, but only for the exact word or phrase that you enter. So let me give you just a couple of examples so you can see what this means. So I'm just going to type in MuleSoft, which is one of Salesforce's products. And if I scroll to the bottom here quickly, you'll see that we've got now up to 40 companies that have MuleSoft as part of their profile. Okay, so I'm going to scroll back to the top. I'll just shorten that to Mule. Okay, and you'll see it's the same 40 words because Mule is part of the word MuleSoft. However, if I enter the words Mule and soft, now I get no results because that keyword phrase Mule space soft does not appear in anyone's profile. Okay, so again, with the search, the thing you have to be aware of is that it's great for typing in, let's say, a specific company name or a specific keyword, but it's limited beyond that. And that's where these filters come in. So there are 15 filters that you can use to find profiles on Wattslist. It's kind of a lot. I recognize. I actually had more than this to begin with, but I pared them back. But let me just jump back to a slide for a second so I can break this down for you. So hopefully you can kind of get a frame of reference for what are these filters actually doing for you. So there really are 4 types of filters. The first are filters about the businesses themselves. So are they a consulting firm or independent consultant? What regions do they operate in? What languages do they offer their services in? Information about the company ownership, if they're a Salesforce partner, and if they have job listings. So kind of just attributes about the companies themselves. The second set of filters are about that company's client focus. So what size nonprofit organizations do they work with? Do they focus on any specific sub-vertical in the nonprofit sector? And do they focus on any particular nonprofit functional areas? And we'll dip into each of these in a bit in the demo, so you'll see what the options are that are available there. The third type of filter is what type of services does the consultant provide? And those are broken into both technical services as well as what I'm calling other services. And then finally, what sort of technology capabilities do they have? So this is broken into 4 different menus. The first is which nonprofit specific Salesforce technology do they work with? What other Salesforce clouds or products do they work with? Do they offer developer services? Do they provide Apex coding or Visualforce or advanced database work? And then which ISV apps do they have experience with? So this is really the dials you're able to turn on Wattslist to help you identify the consultants that are going to be the best fit for your need. What type of business are they? What sort of clients do they focus on? What type of services do they provide? And what sorts of technologies are they able to support? Okay, so let me head back over now to the site and just point out a couple of additional things that are important for you to know about the filters. So the first is how the filter logic works. And I'm going to try to really emphasize this a couple of times, that values selected within a single filter menu use OR logic, and values selected between multiple filter menus use AND logic. Okay, OR logic within a menu, AND logic between menus. So let me illustrate practically what this means. So if we go to the subvertical focus menu, let's select one of the options here. So we'll choose foundations. Okay. So this will give me any firm that indicates that they have a focus on that particular subsector. Okay. If I also select human services, I will get all firms that work with organizations that are either foundations or human services organizations, or both. So by adding additional values, I haven't necessarily narrowed down my options. In fact, I've actually expanded them, because now this is going to show me anyone who works with foundations or with human services organizations. Okay, so values within a single menu use OR logic. Values selected between multiple menus or between the menus and the search use AND logic. And so this is really where you can start to narrow things down among the consultants on Watt's list. So let me give you an example here. So let's select type consulting firm. Let's select target client size 500 plus employees. I'm going to clear out these other two from earlier. And let me select Salesforce other technology B2C commerce. Okay. So I've applied three criteria now. If I scroll to the bottom, you'll see that I have no page control. So this tells me it's less than 10 firms that match that criteria. And you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. Okay. If under Salesforce other technology, in addition to B2C commerce, I also add Experience Cloud and scroll back to the bottom, now you can see I've got 4 pages of results. So up to 40 firms now match that criteria. And it's because I added a second option under the Salesforce other technology menu. Okay. So the more filter menus you apply to your search and the fewer options you select within a single menu, the more specific your results will be. All right. So let me talk about one other tool at your disposal, and then we'll get into our scenarios, and that is the sort order. So the default sort order, anytime you come to Watt's list, the default order is going to be random. Every time you refresh the page, you're going to get things in a random order. But there are a number of other different options by which you can sort the results: by the firm name, so alphabetically, by the total employees, by their years in business, by the years providing Salesforce services to nonprofits, and by the number of staff they have who provide Salesforce services to nonprofits. Okay. And you'll notice that there are up arrow and down arrow options for each of these sort options. Okay. An up arrow, if it's alphabetical, so like firm name, an up arrow sorts A to Z, a down arrow sorts C to A. And for numerical options like employees or years in business, an up arrow sorts lowest to highest. So you get the youngest companies first, and a down arrow sorts highest to lowest. So you get the oldest firms first. Okay. So once you set this filter menu, it will stay set until you change it or until you close your browser, leave the site. Okay. So I can, let's say I choose to sort by years of Salesforce nonprofit experience. Okay. I can clear out all my other criteria using the reset button, but that's going to stay. So you'll need to change that manually if you want to change the sort order. Okay. All right. So let me just check the Q&A panel here. So is Watts List accessible for users with disabilities? If so, what is the level of WCAG? I don't know that specifically. I did, in working with my designer, he did some accessibility checking for me and identified some things that needed tweaking or improvements in terms of contrast and things like that. I don't know the specific WCAG level though, so I would have to take that as a follow-up. Okay, another question. Is there the ability to sort consultants by other than nonprofit CRM experience, i.e. thinking about migrating from one system to another? Is smoothest when the consultant is familiar with that system already? No, there isn't, other than these options, there is not a way to do that inside the system. I love that idea and definitely understand the value of that. And that's one of those items that today you would have to, once you've identified the firms that Watts List can help you identify, you would need to contact those firms directly to get more specific details on any of the particular years of experience with certain technologies or ISV apps. Another question is there any feedback or moderation that would disqualify a firm or consultant? So yes, so when a consulting firm fills out an application for a listing, I do a light validation of that, meaning I will just make sure that the information that they're providing is clear and understandable to me. I will then go based on whatever external links they have provided, so to their website, to their App Exchange listing, to their Trailblazer profile, or to their website. Did I say that already? To just validate that there's something else that tells me that this is a company that does Salesforce related work for nonprofits. So, if that is clear to me upon looking at those other sources, then I will approve their profile. But I do reserve the right to ask for firms to either update or modify whatever they have provided if I learn that it's not accurate in some way, or to remove their listing from the site. Another question is, you can see the list of sellers, but not the buyers, correct? That's right. So Watts List is just for the consultants themselves, a directory of the consultants. Anybody else who uses the site would be, not found on the site or would be anonymous. Okay, yeah, okay. So the order of the target client size option is a little confusing. Yes, it is. This is a limitation of the platform that I'm using. I have put this in as a feature request for them. Hopefully they'll update it, but if you'll notice, it's doing, I guess, it's almost like an alphabetical sort of the numbers. So we've got, 1 and 11, 2 and 251 and 26, 576. So yes, when you're going to the target client size menu, just be aware that these are not in strict numerical order. All of the categories are there. But you'll just have to think a little bit about what size organization you are and find it in the list. All right, so that's all the questions that have come in so far. Let me go ahead and then get into our first scenario. So this is a nonprofit who is looking for an implementation firm. Okay, so the scenario here is that it's a US-based nonprofit. They have a 70-person staff. They do global grant making, and they're looking to implement Salesforce for the first time. All right, so let's all imagine we're part of that organization and we're coming here to help us narrow down our options for consultants who could help us. So let's just work our way through these menus. So first of all, it's a full implementation for a 70-person firm. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say they're gonna want a firm to do that, not an independent consultant. It's probably gonna be a little bit bigger project than they would wanna hire just a single individual for. So I'm going to select consulting firm. The second is that the organization is based in the US, so we only want firms that serve the US market, which is the majority of them. And we know we'll need our services conducted in English. As I mentioned, the organization is a 70-person staff, so they would fall into this category of 26 to 75 employees. However, because they're kind of on the border there, I'm going to go ahead and also select the next highest category. So now we're looking at firms that work with anywhere from organizations of 26 up to 250 staff members. And then, as I mentioned, they are a foundation. So under subvertical focus, I will choose foundations. So when firms create their profile listing, they can select up to 5 of these specializations if they want to. They don't have to choose this. And so I'm going to go ahead and actually just cast a little bit wider net. So it is a foundation, but their work is focused on international development. So I'd be interested in firms that have experience with either one of those subverticals. So I want to cast a little bit wider net. So I'll choose more options under this one menu. And then from a functional perspective, how will the nonprofit be making use of Salesforce? You can see the options that are available here. In this case, they'll be using it primarily for grant making, so I will select that. Okay, so now let's think about the type of services the organization needs. As I mentioned, they're coming to Salesforce for the first time, so they need implementation. They may also need some other options, but because that's the one I know that they need, I'm going to select that so I can keep it as targeted as possible. And then in terms of other services, you can see some of the options that are available here. Fundraising strategy, staffing strategy, user experience design, things like that. I know change management is an important component, so I want firms that have some capabilities or some services around that. So I'll select change management. Okay, so let's just pause. So these are the filters. We can see everything that we have applied so far to our search. And if I scroll down to the bottom, so I've got now up to 20 firms that match the criteria, somewhere between 10 and 20 firms. Let's go ahead and apply some additional criteria. So we've talked about the services types, the functional areas. Now let's get into the technology. What's the actual tech that we need this company to be able to implement for us? So this organization knows that it wants to go to the new version of Salesforce's nonprofit cloud and wants to use the grant making solution that's built on that product. So I'm going to select that. And then in terms of other technology, there may be some things that the organization might like to have. They know because they'll be doing a grantee portal that they need Experience Cloud. So I'll select that option as well. Developer services, not really sure whether we're going to need that or not, so I'll leave that blank. It'll include both those who have it and those who don't. And then ISV app experience. So as I mentioned, there are now more than 100 different ISV apps that consultants on Watt's list have indicated they have experience with. So that's not true for this particular scenario that we know we need a certain app, but let's just play with this a little bit so you can see how this works. And one thing you'll notice here right away in this menu is we're seeing something new, which is some of the options are grayed out. They're not available to me anymore. So what does that mean? So that means that based on the criteria I have applied so far, I have begun to eliminate options available to me in other criteria areas, right? So if for example, I knew that critical to this project was the use of Asana, I would know that I'll need to remove some other filter criteria because none of the firms that correspond to my current criteria also have indicated they have a specialization in Asana, okay? Or let's say, we knew that in this case, the organization was going to integrate with Accounting Seed, so they wanted a firm that had Accounting Seed experience. If I select that and scroll down, you'll see now I've just got 3 firms that have that meet all of those criteria so far. So you can begin to see again, the more criteria you apply across different menus, the more and more your results will get narrowed down. I'll just go ahead and take that off for now. Okay, so our last 3 filters, company ownership. So as I mentioned earlier, firms on Watt's list represent a number of different underrepresented groups in the tech sector. You can see based on the criteria I've selected so far, I have eliminated a number of those companies as options. But if I wanted to select ownership by any of these additional groups, I could do that. And by the way, this is greater than 50% ownership by an individual in one of these groups. Salesforce partner. I can choose whether I want the consultant I work with to be an official Salesforce partner. Notice that the options to select no is grayed out because everyone I've already selected is a Salesforce partner. And then, it's not important to me in this scenario if the firm has job listings. Okay. So now we've got our list of consulting firms. And if we can, again, go to the bottom here, we can see it's somewhere between 10 and 20 firms that match this criteria. And so the last step that we'll do here is do a little bit of sorting. So I will, let's say, sort by years of Salesforce nonprofit experience. So I guess that's the one I already had selected. So from the down arrow means we're starting with the most, going to the least. So, of these firms, this is the order in terms of number of years that they've been doing Salesforce work for nonprofits. So I've got Exponent and Fionta and Idealist and Heller and Redpath, Vera Solutions. And then let's just go ahead and sort through another option. Let's do Salesforce nonprofit consulting staff. So this is now we're looking at how big is their team that provides Salesforce consulting that can meet these criteria. So I've got Fusion Span now coming to the top, EigenX, Arcus, there's Fionta again, there's Vera Solutions again, there's Idealist Consulting again. So you're starting to get a sense of sort of where some of the overlap is as you start to apply these different sort orders to the firms. All right. Cool. So let me just pause. I want to jump into a profile next, but let me just pause and see if additional questions have come in. Okay, so this one is, are there plans to implement a quote request feature to Watts list? Not at this point in time. My intention is that this is really a research tool, but that when someone is ready to reach out to a firm, they would do that directly for any additional validation, for conversation, for discovery, and for any kind of quotes. I'll certainly capture that as a feature request, but there's no plans for that at this point in time. And then there's a question: is this only for consultants / firms or for ISVs that serve nonprofits as well? Today, this is just for those who provide consulting services. Really the only place, again, that ISV capabilities would be reflected would be under the ISV app experience menu. That's also, I think, an interesting idea to think about some version of this that would also help nonprofits sort of filter through all the available apps based upon the types of functionality or categories of those apps, but it's just not part of this current version. Okay, so let's go into a profile now. We'll just use Fusion Span. So this is the format of the consultant listing. And again, it'll be the same format for each firm. So we've got the name of the firm. We've got the Contact Us button. So this will open a window where you can send an email. It'll open whatever your email program is, if it's Gmail or Outlook or whatever, or with an email that you can send to the contact designated by this particular company. We've got this open text description, so firms are welcome to say anything they want to about their company here. I think there's like 1,000 character limit, so it's about a page worth of text that they can enter about themselves. And then we're going to start to see some of the things we were already using to filter on. So for example, type as consulting firm, region served, languages, firm ownership, sectors. So things we've already seen. There's some things we haven't seen. So for example, where is the firm headquartered? What other sectors do they serve if they don't just serve the nonprofit sector? What percentage of their business is Salesforce for nonprofits? how many total employees do they have? How big is their nonprofit consulting staff? You can see which size organizations they like to serve, which subsectors they support, functional areas, technical services. All of that will be listed out here on the profile. Other services, the nonprofit specific technology from Salesforce, any other technology from Salesforce, any other clouds they support. If they offer developer services, what services do they offer? If they have any things that they offer on the App Exchange by way of apps, bolts, components. I guess a little bit to the earlier question, if one of these consulting firms also has an app on the App Exchange, that can be reflected here on the profile. And then if they have any other intellectual property or accelerators that they bring to bear for their nonprofit clients. In this case, FusionSpan just added a link off to that. Sometimes firms will just list whatever those accelerators are. This is where we can see the different ISV apps the firm has experience with. We can also see if they're an official partner of any of the ISV app companies. So in this case, FusionSpan is an official partner of Fontiva, Avalara, and Nimble AMS. Practically what that means is that they have, a more privileged relationship with that company. Probably means they have a little bit better access to support and resources and enablement around that app. So that can be a good thing to find if you're looking for firms with particular technology experience. We can also see if they have experience with any other technologies that might be relevant to the nonprofit project, AWS, HubSpot, Google Cloud, Microsoft. We can see if they're an official partner. And here's then where we can go off to their App Exchange listing, to their website, to their blog or article page on their website. So this is a quick way to understand what are the kinds of things that they talk about in the market to see if it's relevant to the needs of our particular organization. We can take a look at their job listings as well as their LinkedIn site. The thing I like about having LinkedIn here is that once you click over to the firm's LinkedIn page, you can see if you know anybody at that firm or if you're connected to anyone who's connected to that firm as a way that you can identify potential references for that firm for your nonprofit needs. And then the last update date. So a couple of things to know about the data that firms can provide here. The first is that they can edit it at any time. So if FusionSpan decides they're not really happy with their listing or they've gotten some additional ISV app experience, they can come in and modify this as often as they'd like to. The other thing to be aware of is that if a firm does not respond to a particular question on the profile, so some questions are required, but a lot of them are optional. If a firm does not respond to a question, then that section will not be on their profile. So for example, if they don't have any App Exchange apps or bolts or components, you won't even see that on their profile. It's not something that'll be there. So that might explain some differences you might see looking at one firm's profile listing versus another's. All right. Great. So I am going to jump into our second scenario here. And I'm just keeping an eye on the Q&A panel. If you have additional questions, please feel free to drop those in. So let's go back. And I am going to, oh, great. All those filters have already reset. Oh, there's something I forgot to mention from earlier. So I have noticed on this platform a little bit of unpredictable behavior in going into a profile listing and then going back. So I have two recommendations for you. The first is that when you're clicking into profile listings, go ahead and open those in a new tab. That way the criteria you've applied will persist. The other thing, and this is a really cool feature, is once you have built out your criteria and you've got your list of firms, you can essentially save that by just going to the URL and copying the URL string. And then anytime you come back to that same URL, all of those previous filters will be applied. So it's a great way if you want to do research over a period of time, or if you want to share with other people in your organization so they can take a look. That's a really easy way to do that. Okay, so second scenario is it's a nonprofit looking for an independent consultant to help with a specific need. So in this case, I'm thinking of an organization that has NPSP and they want to start to do some more advanced analytics. And so they're thinking about either CRM analytics or Tableau or maybe both. And they're not quite sure exactly what they want to do yet. But it sounds to them like the kind of thing that maybe if there was an individual who had that kind of experience, they could start with that person to kind of understand what their options are, and then maybe to do some setup of those analytics tools. The other aspect of that scenario is I might be a consulting firm who doesn't work with CRM analytics or Tableau, but has a client who has those needs. And so I want to see if there's a resource who could maybe subcontract to me to come and talk to my client and potentially help them with whatever technical needs they have as a subcontractor. So it would be kind of the same process in either case. So we're going to be looking this time for an independent consultant. We know we want them to have experience with NPSP. And then we know we want them to have experience with CRM analytics or with Tableau. Okay, so now if you notice the URL string, all the filter options are here. So again, I could just copy this, save it, and revisit this at any time. So these are the options that have come back to me. It looks like there are 4 of them. So 4 independent consultants on Watt's list who have experience with NPSP and CRM and analytics or Tableau. Okay, so let's go ahead and just check one of these out. So here's an example of another profile listing. This is an independent consultant. Again, same format, company name, contact us button, description, and then the additional information that they provided as part of their profile. So we see this is a firm that's greater than 50% ownership by women. You know, how many years in business, how many years of Salesforce experience. This is something you'll often find with independents that they've been working with Salesforce longer than they've been an independent consultant because they've done that work elsewhere. That's certainly true for me. So, you know, this consultant has been working with Salesforce for 11 years, has had their own business for 6 years. It's 1 employee, 1 person that does nonprofit work. And then I'll just, you know, you see some of the same options we saw before. This person has developer skills, so that could be a nice thing to have in this situation. And instead of linking to an AppExchange profile, in this case, we've got a link to the individual's Trailblazer page. So the thing I like about this is that from a Trailblazer page, well, first of all, I can see who this is. It's Farah, okay? So I know who the individual is, even though on Watt's list, she's using her firm name. I can see what certifications that she has and when she earned them. I can see how many Trailhead badges she has. I can even see down on the profile what kind of skills she has across the Trailhead badges that she's earned. So, you know, reporting, nonprofits, Lightning, data management, right? These are all good skills that could come in handy on this particular project. I can also see if this person has been active on the Trailblazer community, I can actually go and see all of the questions that they've asked and all of the answers they've provided to other questions on the Trailblazer community. So again, this will help me get a feel for who this person is and the kind of skills and knowledge that they'll bring to my project. And then as well as connection. So see if I'm connected to anyone else to them on the Trailblazer community. Okay. There's also here a hire me button. So if you want to go to their Trailblazer profile and then follow that link, you can also essentially message this person directly through the Trailblazer community. All right. So let's go into our last scenario, which is a job seeker, and I'm going to reset here. So again, if you're someone who is either currently a consultant in a Salesforce firm, you're working as a Salesforce administrator or staff inside of a nonprofit organization, and you're looking for job opportunities among companies that do this work, again, Watts List can be a good resource for you. So the simple way to do this is just to come in and say, show me all firms that have job listings. So they've included a job listing link as part of their profile. You're not going to find the specific jobs on Watts List, but you are going to be able to link over to their job listing page if they have one. All right. So if I again just kind of scroll to the bottom here quickly, you can see that there's up to 60 firms that have provided a job link, which is awesome, right? But even more than that, I can now start to apply some of these same filters to help narrow down the types of firms that might be of interest to me as a job seeker. So let's say I know I only want to work with small organizations. So I can choose target client size of 1 to 10 employees, and that'll only show me firms that work with that part of the market. Let's also say I only want to work or primarily want to work with organizations that do human services. So I can select that as an option. I could further filter based on things like functional areas, technical services, developer services, and so forth. And you'll see, as we go through this, again, some of the options are going to be grayed out based upon prior selections. If I want to, work with a firm that is run by an underrepresented group, I could choose that option here. Let's say I'd be interested in primarily working with a woman-led firm. I can select that. And now I've got my list of firms that meet that criteria. So there are three firms that have job listing links on Watts List that also match these other criteria. Here is FusionSpan again. So I'll go into their profile. I promise this is not an ad for FusionSpan. And although they're great, and let's just go over to their job listing site. And so again, this is whatever link they have provided as part of their profile, and I can see, they've got various positions, even internationally. So I can see, if I'm looking in the U.S. and I want a senior consultant role or a project manager role, I can click in and learn more about those jobs and follow up from there. I could also use the contact us link on Watts List if I wanted to, seek additional information about the firm. I wanted to make you aware of a few additional resources. If you have additional questions, we've got about 5 minutes, so please put those into the Q&A panel. So first of all, for nonprofits, I've created a couple of resources. The Nonprofit Guide to Choosing a Salesforce Consulting Partner walks you through the full process that I use when I'm working with clients to help them do a partner selection. And I also have a video that's available on how to use the App Exchange, so how to kind of do some of these same search techniques, but using the tools available in the App Exchange. For consulting firms, last year I did a webinar on doing business in the Salesforce ecosystem for nonprofits, so kind of giving you an overview of what the ecosystem is like, as well as there's a partner landscape report that I've done the past couple of years. So 2022 edition is available on my website. This is a paid product, but all the rest of these are available to you for free. And then just another plug for my services. So if you're a nonprofit organization and you're feeling a little daunted about the decisions that are required to kind of get you through to your Salesforce project, that's where I can come in. The needs assessment is really designed to give you clarity about, is Salesforce a good fit for you? And is this the right time for your organization? And what are the resources and budget that will be required for that? Partner selection is helping you go through a formal process to choose the right consultant for your project. And then implementation oversight is where I can walk with you and your partner through your project to help ensure success. And then I also have some additional services for consulting firms, benchmarking, positioning and go-to-market strategy work, as well as partnership development. Okay, here's a question. How do I get update access to a company profile that was submitted by a fellow colleague? So someone else in your company created your profile and you want to be able to make changes to it. So let me just point everyone to the contact link here on the site. So if you can just fill out this form, let me know what your need is, and I can work with you to make that happen. The way it works now, whoever the primary contact is who created the profile kind of is the owner of the profile, but they can share that edit link out with others in their company to make updates. Okay, the next question is, what would be the filter for someone looking for data migration services? I believe that is here. Okay, yeah, there's not one that is specifically for data migration. So that would fall either between, today would fall either between an implementation, so implementing the migration, or a project-based or task-based type of project. And then again, you could certainly use the search here to search for the phrase data migration within a profile. Okay, just scrolling through the list here. Looks like this got a little out of order. Okay, I don't see any other. There's a suggestion here. Yes. To provide some additional guidance to users on how the filters work and defining some terms. I do have that. If you go to the Get Started page here, a number of the things that I covered today are explained. So it's like some of the filter logic and so forth. So that could be a good starting place. But yes, I don't think I have anything yet that says, what is an ISV? What does that mean? And you're absolutely right. For someone coming new to Salesforce, that's not going to be obvious. So I will look to maybe provide a glossary of terms here as part of my FAQ. I think that's a great suggestion. Yeah. So sometimes people are looking for folks to migrate off of Razor's Edge. I'm not sure. Let's just try this. So I'm looking for a consultant who can help me, with getting off of Razor's Edge or integrating with Razor's Edge, something like that. So it looks like there are some profiles that match that. So we'll just go into Agile Cloud here and see the way they've done that. Do a quick search here. Okay, so for Agile Cloud, they list Razor's Edge migrations as IP or an accelerator that they have, meaning they've got some tool or something that's designed to enable clients with their Razor's Edge migration. So that's the way that it's shown up on their profile. Also, sometimes organizations have added it here to their other technology. So there's with many of these options, when a profile is completed, there's a standard set of options, but then firms can add additional things to that. So for example, I know Agile has added Informatica and custom development. Those aren't standard menu options. So that's another way that firms can indicate if they have expertise with working with clients around a particular technology that's beyond Salesforce, it can be included on the profile here through other technology. Any plan to add region or city to the search in addition to country or language? We are prioritizing local consultants as we may want to do a local meeting training. Yeah, I like that suggestion a lot. In fact, that was one of the additional filters that I had to begin with before I decided it's got a little too filter heavy, so I needed to cut it off somewhere. So yes, right now you can just filter by country, but I love the idea of being able to provide some additional granularity around, maybe U.S. state, Canadian province, things like that, just to help you get even more regionally specific. You could do that through the search. I don't know, it might be a little hit or miss, but let's say we were in Toronto, right? So Passion Fruit Partners, their headquarters is in Toronto, Canada. The word Toronto appears in their profile. Therefore, they show up based on that city search. So you could, at least for now, you could use that as a way to find people in a specific metro region or city. Okay, you put in Philadelphia and didn't get any hits, but we're able to find some in New York. Yeah. Wonder about PA. I don't think Dryad is in Pennsylvania. So yeah, you could try state abbreviations, state name, city name. All right, everybody. Again, thank you so much. I hope this was helpful to you. Have a great rest of your day.